If your pedals are impossible to remove from your bike, you've tried everything you can think of and have got no idea what to do next, this is the video for you, because I'm going to show you a method that I find always works. Before we go any further in this video, there is one crucial fact that you must know, and that is that the left-hand crank and left-hand pedal uses a reverse thread. So this means it's the opposite way to the other side of your bike and the opposite way to almost every other bolt on your bike. So if you look at your crank and pedal side on, you need to turn it clockwise towards the back of the bike to undo it. Once you've got that bit of information, make sure you never forget it, because it's the same for every single bike all around the world. With that cleared up, let's assume that you've exhausted every other option and you really have no idea what to do next, because otherwise, why would you be watching this video in the first place? Now, the first and most important job that I'm going to say you need to do here is to remove the cranks from your bike. Now, it's going to vary how you do this by different crank designs that are out there. In this case, the Shimano crank, you just undo the 2 pinch bolts, remove the preload end cap, slide the cranks off, and then slide the other side out of the frame. Now, the reason I'm saying to do this is because it means we've got greater access to the cranks, and when we're applying force through trying to undo the pedals, we haven't got to worry about that force going through and damaging and putting stress through other parts of the bike. Plus, it just makes everything a little bit easier to have it separate from the bike. Leverage is the most important thing here. Not only leverage, but also the angle at which you're applying the force to. Now, when it comes to removing the pedals off of your bikes, typically you've got a couple of different options: a hex wrench or key, such as this, or also a pedal spanner like this. Now, using a premium quality tool is going to be really important here. Not only will it be made out of a tougher, more durable material, it's also likely to fit the pedals a little bit better, so there's less chance of it slipping, causing you to damage your hands, or damage the part that you're trying to undo. Okay, so starting with your left-hand crank, place it onto a workbench or a soft section of floor. If you need to use a cloth, you can use that, and have it in the position it would be when it's fitted onto the bike and with the pedal in the forwards most position. You can then take your hex key or spanner or hex wrench, whatever you want to call it, place it into the back of the pedal and find an area where the hex key will click into place and leaves you with something that is like this. This way, when the hex key or spanner is in this position, you can simply push down on it and the crank is going to act as your stop and additional lever point to allow you to push down with your body weight until it undoes. This means you're not having to fight with the crank trying to rotate on the bike, and you haven't got the frame in your way stopping you putting force down through the hex key. Bonus tip, if you're using some premium hex keys like this, you can slide the head part of the tool like this, which means when you insert it into the back of your pedal, your leverage point here is much, much closer to that of where the pedal meets the crank. It means more of your force is going to go directly to it rather than being wasted further out here, meaning the tool is far more likely to slip and round out the pedal. The exact same process is going to apply to the right-hand side of your crank. We're simply going to position it side on, have the crank forwards in its position, and then depending on whether you've got a pedal which has got a hex key at the back or some flats on the front, you can choose whether you use your spanner or the hex wrench. Now, it's also good practice here to remove the chain rings from the crank. Not only does it reduce the risk of damaging the chain rings, it also means in the unfortunate event that you were to slip, your hands aren't going to hit the chainring teeth and it isn't going to cause you an injury. And that is a really good point to make. So before going any further and running the minor risk of causing a minor hand injury, now would be the perfect time to click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications if you haven't done already, and also give this video a thumbs up. It also is probably advisable and good practice to wear some safety gloves. So in the same process as what we did with the left-hand crank, it's important to position your spanner at the correct angle so you can apply force, pushing it directly down. That means you're reliant upon your body weight rather than the strength of your arms, which as cyclists, we're not exactly renowned for. So that's my almost surefire guaranteed way to remove the pedals off of pretty much any crank. But as with all of these things, there's a little bit of trial and error and practice involved to get the technique just right. But if somehow you are the unluckiest person in the world and that still isn't working, or you've perhaps rounded off the flats of your pedals or rounded off the hex key bit in the back of your pedal and you're wondering what to do next, well, thankfully, there are still a couple of different things. Number one would be to use a tool that is even longer and is going to give you even more leverage. That's going to allow you to apply more rotational force to get the pedal to come undone. There's also the option of applying some heat to the component as well. Now, you do want to apply caution here, and I would not advise heating up a carbon fiber crank or a crank such as a modern Shimano one, which is bonded together. Now, the reason applying heat can help in some cases is because typically cranks and the crank arms tend to be made from aluminium. Aluminium heats up faster than steel. Steel is typically what the pedal axles are made from, and then because the aluminium expands, it should make it all a little bit easier to come undone. And then if somehow all of that has still failed and you're left stood there scratching your head with all of the bolt flats and hex holes rounded out, not knowing what to do next, well, unfortunately, it's going to be damage limitation here, and you are going to have to accept the fact that to remove that pedal off of that crank is ultimately going to result in you having to take the pedal apart and risk completely damaging it to get it off. Normally, in this situation, you could get something like an adjustable pipe wrench to go over the section of the pedal axle that is exposed, and then as you apply more force to that, the tool is going to grip in tighter to the pedal axle and then get it to eventually come undone. As I say, 9 times out of 10, this is going to result in the pedal axle and the body becoming damaged, and you're probably not going to be able to use it again. But it does mean you've got that pedal off of your cranks, and you can reuse the cranks again. Now, there's some important takeaway points to make note of here, and whilst most manufacturers will have a recommended torque setting to tighten the pedals up when you're installed into the bike, it's not actually crucial to use that. Now, in my experience of regularly changing pedals between different bikes and over all of the years that I've been cycling, I found it best practice just to apply a little bit of force to the pedals because you don't need to wrench them up super tight. Otherwise, they end up getting stuck on. Also, when you are installing pedals onto a bike, a little bit of grease goes a long way and is going to help stop any corrosion forming, again, making it difficult to get your pedals off. Okay, hopefully that has helped you out and given you some good advice and tips to remove the pedals off of your bikes. If you have any advice of your own, please do put it in the comments section down below to help the rest of the GCNTech community out. And as I mentioned earlier, if you haven't subscribed already, please do because it helps support our channel. Right, I'm out of here. See you later.